Welcome back to Gush. Today we're here to discuss a very important yet vastly misunderstood topic that seems to relate to all of our lives in some strange, unexplainable way. It's the force that we cannot get away from, the character that we cannot seem to escape no matter what happens. Sonic the Hedgehog and the esoteric lore which very few have delved into. Today we have Cybershell joining us.
Hello.
For all of his Sonic expertise, game knowledge, and just overall research that he's done over the decades at this point.
Research, yeah.
Years of research.
And we also have LevPo joining us of Break the Rules fame, and also he has his own channel. Lev, can you explain to us how you view Esoteric Sonic and what that really means to you?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. You could find me at LevPo on Twitter, breaktherules.tv. I got a shill in the beginning. But anyway, I got really high one time in my backyard. And I know people say, oh, what were they smoking when they came up? Well, I was vaping at the time. And I used to love vaping and then going to the gym because, you just go fully into your body. But anyway, what ended up happening was I was looking at a picture of one of those Farbahars from Zoroastrianism. For those who don't know what that is, it is a symbol of a man pointing up in Zoroastrianism, which is this Persian religion founded by Zarathustra or Zoroaster. That's an example of a similar kind of image over here. But the one that I'm talking about is specifically from Iran, and it features the man pointing up, and it features the winged disc, as well as this little tail, these little two tails that it has. I'm not really sure what those are, like ribbons just floating in the sky. And you observe those same things in the Sonic the Hedgehog logo. So that is probably an Iranian man. That is pretty close. You can even see these things in ISIS too. So you remember ISIS? They point up to the sky to signify Allah. Like there's a similar thing going on there, which is pretty old. I mean, just the idea, point up and you point to God. But from what I understand, that pointing up and the winged disc and all that, to me, it's a symbol of enlightenment. It's a symbol of transcending whatever mortal attachment we have and going beyond. This guy you see over here, that's Wim Hof. It's this Iceman, as he is known, this Dutch guy who started doing this breathing technique, as a result of which he started secreting dimethyltryptamine or DMT, allegedly. And when I started doing it, I also got into the state of Kundalini awakening, I guess you could say. I don't know if the Kundalini is fully awoken yet, but it's like this primal energy in the base of your spine that
So when Sonic,
up,
sorry to cut you off,
go on,
but
go on.
I felt like this might be relevant to bring up. Sonic is pointing
Yes.
up in this emblem,
Yes.
surrounded by stars with wings off to the side. Do you view that as a parallel? Because I just saw you transition from in this video that you made. You transition from this sort of this looks like some
Kundalini
sort
map.
of Kundalini map into the Sonic emblem for the opening screen, obviously.
Well, it is pretty close to being a Kundalini map. That's the Kabbalistic tree of life, which is a blueprint of consciousness, from what I understand. It's basically breaks down how we are created and what the roadmap is to going back to where you came from, so to speak, to going back to universal consciousness. Kundalini, same idea there. You have this primal energy, which is located in your root chakra. So the chakra that's responsible for survival, procreation, things of that nature. And the idea is to transmute one's sexual energy to a higher state. So once this kind of liquidy energy starts flowing upwards, either from the breathing techniques or just generally from meditation or whatever you are going to use, or from your guru, sometimes guru would give you Shaktipat, which would, get you to some other level. Who knows? Anyway, the point is that the sexual energy is supposed to be transmuted to a higher form.
Now, would you say that
yeah,
sexual energy is represented through Rouge the Bat?
definitely. No, 100%. I mean, I think that a lot of these things are also challenges that are thrown in our way. Being kids growing up with Sonic Adventure 2, with Rouge the Bat with her two
It's a test.
bounteous, Yes, it is a test. It's very similar probably to what Jesus Christ experienced. You know, it's a temptation. It's
What
the
would you
last
see?
temptation of
So
Christ.
if I can center this discussion, maybe we could have I want to have Cybershell weigh in a moment here, but maybe this is something I've just observed. It's kind of obvious, I guess, but Shadow, his name Shadow. I mean, if you understand the concept of the shadow in philosophy,
yeah.
in psychology, it's the idea of that everybody has this shadow version of themselves, and the shadow reaches all the way to hell, and it's this complete darkness that everyone is capable of. And I think Shadow, in many ways, represents the opposite of Sonic, but yet there's a parallel there. There's a similarity. They're not like completely separate entities. They're actually two parts of a whole, I think. So I've always found that dichotomy interesting, the Shadow and Sonic. And you saw, even in the cover of Sonic Adventure 2, you had Sonic on one side, Shadow on the other side, and it's kind of like two sides of the same coin. Cybershell, would you say, going deeper into the lore or into the characters, does that metaphor hold up?
Yeah, I think it's kind of an interesting take. Like I know Sonic X did the weird thing with like a dark Sonic that was like a separate entity from Shadow, but I as far as the games go, I definitely see what you're saying. Shadow is definitely like he's not like evil per se, but it's definitely a good example of how like you can have people do anything you want if you just get them to believe a certain type of thing.
And Shadow also sacrificed himself at the end, something
Yes,
that we haven't
very.
really seen from Sonic.
They did sort of walk that back immediately and bring him back in the later games because he's a popular character and they wanted to make money and all that crap. I don't even know if it was that cynical. Maybe they just liked Shadow. But at the very SA2, he clearly sacrificed himself at the end. He was meant to have died, and it was very I don't know if you want to say it was like a Christ-like moment, but yeah.
It was well, it's interesting because it was like a redemption arc, I guess. Or maybe I don't even know if redemption is the right word because I don't think Shadow. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, what did he do?
He didn't really.
You
do
could say it was
anything.
a redemption. He was basically the reason why the all this shit was going down and like the ark was going to crash to Earth. But he totally like he had to talk to Amy and then remember his promise to Maria. There's some sort of like shit going on where in the Japanese version it's a little more clear that like Professor Gerald like tampered with his memories, whereas in the English version it sort of just seems like he forgot and it kind of didn't really make a lot of sense. They just like randomly like happen to remember it at the most convenient moments. But yeah, I think there is a little bit more to that. And you could say it was a classic redemption tale, honestly. Like it seems like that would have been like he had a complete like start to finish character arc and everything. So it sort of seems like that's what they were going for.
If I can add here, okay, so like Shadow, the existence of Sonic's shadow, because that's what we're saying Shadow symbolizes, right? Leads to all this havoc and all this, through it's like a misguided like leading up to all this like wreckage and havoc or whatever, if you wanted to say it like that. And then when Shadow, like, at the end when he sacrifices himself and he like remembers and like wants to do good, it's like the shadow of Sonic disappears because he sacrifices himself in order to like rectify everything.
He's become whole again.
Yeah.
It is interesting. The entire ending, the entire last story of SA2 is about sort of like, hero and dark working together, sort of, confronting your own demons and overcoming them. It's very much like I can see how you could take that sort of perspective from it.
In the Kabbalah, which is that Jewish mystical blueprint for consciousness, I guess you could say, good and evil is not really seen as good and evil. It's more seen like left-hand path. It's not so much an evil path as it is representative of a certain kind of challenge to overcome. So in Judaism, for example, Satan isn't Satan as much as he is the adversary or left hand of God. So with the right hand, God is merciful, and with the left hand, God is vindictive. But it's this vindictiveness, it's this pressure that you have to fight against. And I think that that's another interesting way of just looking at life itself, not so much
struggle.
about their... Yeah, exactly.
Right. I think within everyone, and that ties in with the Jungian psychology of within everyone exists the shadow.
Within everyone, there is Team Hero and Team Dark.
Yeah, honestly, that is sort of a theme of Sonic Adventure 2, which is that like we're gonna actually show you the Team Dark perspective, because it's like nobody like when you see, it's sort of kind of a weird example because Robotnik is definitely doing some pretty heckin' messed up stuff, guys, trying to blow up the planet and take over the world. But to be fair, it's like nobody really wants to just think of themselves as like pure evil. Like Shadow has like a reason to hate humanity, and like even Robotnik, he's sort of lashing out against the vengeance against shit they did to his grandfather and stuff. So sort of like generations of violence, cycles of violence.
I want to bring up
Well,
something here as well that I think is worth exploring, which is this theme that you see throughout all the Sonic games since the first one of, I guess you could call it man versus machine, nature versus machine.
Yeah, there's always been like an environmental tinge to the series for sure, and it's mostly apparent. You can see that in the first game, which doesn't have a lot of story, so it's mostly just about like the themes and the vibe.
Yeah, like
But
for
I'd say-
example, Sonic has to save all the animals is like loosely
Mhm.
what's implied. Even though I don't know, do they elaborate on that in the games themselves at any point?
They
Well-
do in certain ones, like Sonic. I think it was Sonic, not Colors, but the one that came after Lost World. In Sonic Lost World, they had this whole sequence where they showed the actual process of these animals being put into these robots, and the idea is that the robots they suck off the animals' energy. And so in that Esoteric Secrets of Sonic the Hedgehog video I did, I pointed out how I think that the animals are supposed to represent us. It's supposed to represent all the people who right now are stuck inside of these virtual landscapes, stuck on the phones, stuck on the computers, and how we are getting more roboticized as the years go by.
So essentially, Sonic is breaking people free out of the Matrix, or animals in the case of the games, but he's breaking life out of the Matrix, so to speak.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, who's the real life equivalent to Sonic?
Neo. He's an
No, that's in
archetype.
a
He's an
movie.
archetype. He's a.
We're gonna say Ted
Okay, so
Kaczynski.
let's explore that a bit. What does Sonic? We talked about Shadow and how Shadow represents this other side of everyone, really. But what does Sonic represent? I mean, is he just a go-getter? Is he just a blank slate, or is he? Because they've it's so weird because Sonic has been the silent protagonist and he's been the loud, obnoxious protagonist. So I guess it kind of depends on the game, right?
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny how, to this day, apart from the movie, the Sonic movie that just came out quite recently, like basically, honestly, no real Sonic media has gone to like, been like, here's Sonic's origin story. Here's what he was like as a baby. It's always just like, he's sort of there. He's almost portrayed as just like a force of nature in a way. Like he's just like this carefree guy and he doesn't really care about all this stuff. And yeah, it's not really like, this is why he's like that. I mean, there have been certain things that attempted to like, there was the British comic that had the backstory where he got the special shoes and that's why he can run fast. But
There's Sonic Underground as well, right?
oh yeah. And Sonic See, it's only like the most fringe pieces. Like none of the major like Sonic media really delves on that. Again, apart from the movie, which is quite new, all things considered, in terms of the Sonic mythos.
Well, if the Sonic team created this Sonic Bible that we're creating here, then I'd have to say that like the movie and the TV shows are kind of like Mormons and stuff.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because you can look at the original like Japanese game canon, and that's always like the prime. Like, I mean, I can't even say prime now because there's going to be a new show called Sonic Prime, which is also sort of dealing with multiverses. But like, yeah, the game canon, the Japanese specifically, because even then there's differences. Like back in the day, like Sonic 1, 2, 3. Three, to some degree, had story in the game. I say they mostly didn't really have story in the game. They mostly had the story in like the manuals and stuff.
Mhm.
But when they would localize the manuals, they would make liberal like changes and stuff, just the tone and like weird little details get left out and stuff.
Well, Sonic was supposed to represent coolness even from way back in the day. If there was one word that people would use to describe him, I mean, now it seems
cool
a
or
little bit
attitude.
cringy, but yeah, exactly. He's got an attitude. He's cool. And I
think he
viewed
still is
that-
cool to a lot of people. I think that's
I
partially
still think
why.
he's cool.
Yeah, that's partially why we all liked initially Sonic, is because we view him as this
You don't
cool
think
character.
there's some irony though that's been added, like with the Sonic Twitter, for example, all those weird Sonic walk cycles that animators
Yeah.
did.
Sonic has definitely experienced a change in like the internet age. People call it like the meta age of Sonic. Super High Patch Wolf had a pretty decent video that's almost just about this, which is just how like Sonic, the perception of Sonic has changed. I still think Sonic is cool, just well, I don't really have the most like unbiased view of Sonic here, but I'll just say like I still think the reason he'll survive for a long amount of time is he just has an enduringly like iconic character design that efficiently conveys how like almost everything you need to know about him, that he's cool, that he's got an attitude, the spikes sort of already, even when he's standing still, you can sort of get a gist if he's like a run fast guy. I don't know. I just feel like the character design alone was like enough.
It's pretty awesome.
To be...
Well, you could also look it up. Sonic Sacred Geometry. You'll
Right.
see-
Oh yeah. There's been a
Yeah.
classic meme is people doing the golden ratio with his goofy
that's
head.
the one. Yeah. I think that
I'll
there is
take a look
something
at
to
some of
that,
those
yeah.
images. What I was gonna say though, real quick, is so this idea of diving deeper into the character of Sonic for a moment. This idea of him being this cool character, which is portrayed in everything that he does, especially in the early games. Well, somebody who's cool, somebody who's like, able to just go forward and confidently go fast, I think is somebody who's kind of in this, back to the Matrix analogy, somebody who's got it figured out, somebody who knows the path, so to speak. And that's what you're doing through all the Sonic games, is you're finding the path to eventually go to Eggman and dissolve this this barrier between man and machine, or whatever. This kind of like, you're destroying the what is the
Right.
what is it called again? The space egg or whatever? The
Death Egg.
The death egg. You're
Yes.
destroying the arc.
Right.
You're destroying the manifestation of the ego that's been inflated because Eggman keeps adding more layers onto it.
And Eggman is kind of like himself, obviously, just representing this greedy, like, in a way, even though he's human, he's actually the least human. He has the least humanity of all the
There's
Sonic
a robot
characters.
in his name.
It's I mean, it's not even really that. Like, I guess, like, of a hot, like, not a hot take, but like a controversial stance. But like, yeah, it's kind of funny to make something about, where humans are the bad guys. But like, I don't know, it's not even really like. In the first game, there was literally just like basically two characters. There was Sonic and there was Eggman, and there were technically like the little animals, but they weren't really fully fleshed out characters or whatever. And yeah, it does seem like Sonic is just meant to be in a lot of ways. He just sort of is like the avatar of someone who hates injustice and wants to like, because he doesn't really have a lot of like aspirations or goals or anything besides that. Like when you see Sonic at the beginning of the game and like, or at the end of the game in Sonic Adventure 1, when there's no Eggman threat, he's literally just like chilling around, sleeping. He doesn't really do much.
Well, he's kind of like a Buddha in a way. He has a lack
Yeah.
of attachment.
Exactly,
That enables
exactly.
him- that enables him to go fast, I think. And this is another point that I made, where speed, in terms of brain power, it gets to the fastest wavelength, which is the gamma wavelength, in various meditators, like high-level meditators.
Isn't
But
blue
right
the
before
shortest
that-
wavelength of color?
I believe so. It's purple and ultraviolet and so on and so
Okay.
forth. That it gets more to that spectrum. So you can even see that if you ever see those. And I know these aren't the historical chakras, because the historical chakras have a lot of different colors, but it doesn't matter. If you look at just the chakras, if you search for 7 chakras, you get this wavelength going from red all the way to like this purple violet color. And the waves start getting faster and faster and faster. And so with the meditators, they get their mind into first around like a delta state, which is a very low level. But as soon as they calm down, then they're able to trigger the fastest gamma waves. So there is something, I think, to that, to the stillness, to the quieting down, so you can actually unleash a concentrated burst of energy, as opposed to just being attached to all this noise that comes our way. It's like
I
a
think it's
concentrated,
also-
almost like diamond-like cut.
Like I mentioned, so this is like I have this book. I mentioned this on Lev's podcast last week, but it's like a book that has like instructions on various meditation techniques that are designed for like reaching enlightenment. And a lot of it is like speed is a major emphasis in a lot of those techniques, about like catching sensations like rapidly and stuff like that. So I think it's kind of interesting that you'd bring that up.
Well, it's concentration, because if you're able to
Yeah.
concentrate, then you're able to catch something, as opposed to letting your mind just wander on whatever grabs its attention. So that is, in a
Yep.
way, also you're training yourself not to be attached to whatever thought comes your way. And I don't know. There may be something to Sonic the Hedgehog
And
that
he's
kind of
cool.
technique.
Somebody who's cool-headed, somebody who's cool is not. They're a little
Yeah.
bit detached, but not in like a negative way necessarily. They're just they have it figured out, sort of.
They honestly do, like, it's not like some major theme that they're constantly harping on about, but they do sort of have that, like, Sonic he's averse to attachments. Like, he's no interest in being with Amy.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the times at the end of the game, he's portrayed as, like, even at the end of Sonic Forces, it's like everyone's hanging around doing their thing, and he's just running off in the distance. It happens at the end of a lot of games.
And think
Amy
about
is
it.
an anagram for Maya.
If Sonic, you know, even in real life, I think there's parallels to this. This gets into like relationships and stuff, but you know, by not like, if Sonic fell in love with Amy, okay, or Rouge or whatever, he would be attached. He can't be running off on his own. He can't be doing
That's
his
one
own
of the
adventure.
most
There
hated
was
parts of Sonic
Sally.
06 is that people hated that Sonic was
Oh,
like had a love
yeah.
relationship with that
Yep.
princess, which there's a cringy, furry, whatever aspect, which is bad on its own. But like really the part that bothered me, which is says a lot, is that it just never felt like that was in character for Sonic. Although it's like he's not like head over heels in love, but it is like the fact that that was even like they felt like they needed to have this romance subplot. It just felt so out of place.
I think it's because there are fans of Sonic, you know, like the furries who grew up
Right.
watching Sonic. The ones, in fact, in second grade of Catholic school, one of the first things that I got as far as Sonic-related merchandise was they had this book in the school, How to Draw Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't know if Cybershell, if you remember.
I'm
that
familiar
particular
with
book.
such books. I don't know if I've seen the exact one because I'm sure there were more than one, but I'm aware of such books. Yes.
It was like a mishmash of different art styles because they took something from Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog as far as Robotnik's outfit, but then they took Princess Sally and they
Right.
put her in there. And just imagine like a 7-year-old kid seeing this, you know, like a very female like squirrel girl, you know, with this Princess Diana style hairstyle. And there is something I think to that. Again, talking about like all these temptations that we get along the way, but I think that there is something about that took a lot of young people into the direction of just creating this entire sexual universe related to Sonic the Hedgehog, which has absolutely no connection to whatever is going on in the canon. But they hold on to it and they make it their own, and they're probably going to be in the metaverse now, you know, having like having these dating simulation games with Amy and Sally and Rouge and so on and so forth.
It is
you know what-
interesting how, like, I think Sally did send a lot of young people towards the path of like being a furry and stuff. And it is kind of funny how, like, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, getting exposed to like a female character like that at such a young age, like when you're you're so young, you're not even like conscious of like having sexual feelings. Like, yeah, I can see that being like you're just getting like a splinter in your brain, like the first female that sort of like woke
Yeah.
you up was Sally Acorn. That'll always sort of like, I don't know, it sort of affect your perception of things going forward. I honestly wonder about that.
She caught the
Also,
glimmer
I
in
just
your
want
eye.
to say, like, okay, regarding Sonic 06 having that like romantic subplot, if you think about it, when they were making Sonic 06, like they first of all they fucking named it Sonic the Hedgehog. They were trying to like make this like big. It was supposed to be this big production of a game, you know, like they were
Right.
really trying hard. They were attached to making it something big, and it ended up going into this weird love storyline because that's when they became really attached to the idea of a story.
So did Sonic.
That's what they came up with. They came up with this love thing,
It
right?
just because it's
So-
like just feels so obligatory. Like I feel like that. I don't know if they felt like this is going to be such a big epic
cheesy.
story that we have to have a love story. Like so many, you know, see, so
Yeah,
so
exactly,
many Hollywood
exactly.
movies, like they'll just
It's
cram in a love
cliche.
story.
The,
It is the-
Citizen
it's like
Kane,
the-
Sonic the Hedgehog.
But
really
like,
the
but think about
ultimate
this though,
cliche.
right? The other Sonic games, they were not at all attached to making a story, and it ended up being this like super symbolic thing that we're diving into right now. That's like this whole esoteric thing. But when they were attached to making something, they ended up doing this stupid cliche love story, and then it's like the exact opposite.
That's an excellent observation. I think that's analogous to how in life, when you try to, it's almost like you don't want to try so hard to define, to plan out every little detail, because you can never be a greater architect than the universe itself. So when you leave things a little bit mysterious, a little bit up to interpretation, a little bit unexplained, then it becomes this
You're
puzzle
allowing the
piece.
universe to fill in the gaps.
Yeah, and you're allowing other
itself,
people
you
to
know?
fill in the gaps.
When you try too hard, you're not leaving any room for life to do its thing.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing for art in general, which is you want to especially if you're coming up with a bunch of like complicated lore and backstory, you just want to explain it all and just like info dump on people and like remove all of the mystery and magic of it all. Whereas like especially now on YouTube, you see all these like video essays like the most mysterious things about Mario 64. It's just like just giving people like things to think about and speculate about will leave people with such a more long lasting impression, and it'll keep people thinking about the work way more than just like think about how many
Absolutely.
shows in the final season they just blew their load and just explained everything, and
I kind of
people
felt
just
that way
stopped
about
caring.
Squid Game. I just like recently watched Squid Game with Greg actually, and I thought it was like pretty interesting for the first half of the show. But then as everything started to get explained, I was like, oh, now there's no intrigue, and I don't care.
Yeah, I totally agree. Not mild spoilers for Squid Game, but when it was just like it just got so like I don't even want to say it's fully generic at the end, where it was just the rich people watching in the masks, and then the
Oh,
one spoiler
yeah.
I'll drop, spoilers for Squid Game, just close your ears for the next 30 seconds if you don't want to be spoiled. The part where it's like the guy's brother took off the mask and he was the front man, I was like, dude, come on, like that was so you
Obvious,
just
yeah.
you got to surprise me. You got to do a little more than just like I don't like seeing. I'm not saying don't do archetypes and tropes ever. They exist for a reason, but yeah,
At this
when
point,
things
the
are more
best surprise-
mysterious, they're more
At
cool.
this
Yeah.
point, the best surprise would have been like he would have taken off his mask, and it would have just been some guy.
Just some guy, yeah,
Um,
more realistic.
Who are you?
I want to. I have had this thing pulled up for a while now, and I kind of want you to explain it, Lev. So, this is, to my understanding, this is some sort of hedgehog artifact from ancient Iran, and you're relating this to Sonic. Is that correct?
Yeah, because in terms of the badniks, the robots that Robotnik creates, a lot of them take the form of insects and pests of different kinds. And in Iran, because back in the day you didn't really have any pesticide, you needed hedgehogs to clear out the pests, to eat the bugs and all that. So that's why a creature like the hedgehog was very sacred, so much so that you would get whipped 1,000 times if you hurt any of the hedgehogs. That's how valuable, like they were more valuable probably than people in terms of the service that they were able to do back then. But also as far as Sonic cleaning up pollution, again, going back to the environmental thing, but it also goes back to Zoroastrianism. So with Zoroastrianism, there's this idea of truth and lie. And lie, I believe, is called Druj. And I don't remember what truth is called right now.
It's called Rouge?
Something might... Druj. Druj.
Druj the bat?
That's the lie.
Druj the bat.
lie. There's the bat, exactly. Yeah, there we go. But anyway, when it came to distinguishing between truth and lie, truth would be symbolized by something like light, the sun, and lie would be symbolized by pollution, destruction,
And war.
chaos. War, exactly. Yeah.
Pollution and war. Fix it now. Sorry. Go on.
Oh, well, that's pretty much it. That's why I think Sonic represents.
I never
this,
knew that. That's amazing.
truth.
Yeah, it's really interesting seeing like ancient representations of a hedgehog, and that one in particular I always thought was just so funny. The hedgehog on like the little thing with
That's
wheels, because it's like, what the hell? Like people back then were playing with like hedgehogs and cars too.
Speaking
Yeah,
of
and
robots, I
Yeah.
wanted to bring up something else as well. Kind of, it's almost this other side of, the Shadow Sonic dichotomy, but there's also the robot Sonic.
Right.
Mega Sonic or Metal Sonic.
I
There's
guess
quite
that,
a few versions for sure.
that would probably be man versus machine. What do you guys make? I'm just going to leave it open ended. I mean, do you guys have any thoughts you want to share on Metal Sonic, Robot Sonic, whatever you want to call it?
Well,
There's multiple versions.
if Sonic represents a force of nature, then a robotic representation of Sonic would almost be like the exact opposite of nature, right? It's like the if you imagine like a world that is like devoid of nature, it is entirely machine, entirely man-made. That's how I'm picturing Robot Sonic in this sort of symbolic sense.
It is also another manifestation of Ahriman. So in Zoroastrianism, other than just the truth and the lie, there was also this understanding of this satanic force of the lie being named Ahriman. And Rudolf Steiner, who was first a theosophist, but then he started his own movement, I think called astrotheology, something like that. Anyway, Rudolf Steiner, he also founded the Waldorf schools. There are still loads of Waldorf schools everywhere. It's like these preppy, rich kid schools, and they're pretty good though, I heard. But anyway, the point is that Steiner talked about there coming an age which we may be living in right now or approaching it, of just this pure metal machine materialism.
Bad
And
future.
he called, yeah, bad future, and he called that age the age of Ahriman, when Ahriman would be called forth, would be reintegrated into the whole. And it's up to humans to then try to balance out these two forces of Ahriman, and not God but Lucifer. So to Steiner, Lucifer was not a bad guy. Lucifer basically meant that you would have your head in the clouds, that you would just be in this realm of pure fantasy. But imagine, like, if we were in the realm of pure fantasy right now, if we
That
could
is
do
where we
whatever
are
we
right
want,
now.
kind of.
In
I
the
mean,
Sonic
within certain
universe,
limits.
on Discord,
Yes
on
and-
the internet,
yes-
in this
yes and
strange
no.
space
Yes
that
and
we're
no.
in.
But here's the thing, like Sonic, I think it teaches us certain lessons as well, as far, non-attachment and all that stuff. But if we're just talking about in general, like if you go into VR chat, what do most of the people have as their avatar in VR chat? It's an anime girl, right? That's like one of the most frequent VR chat appearances. So if you were to leave people to their own devices, like if you were to go in this interpretation of Lucifer, if you were to go pure Luciferian, what that would mean is that I think people would just be, again, some would be Princess Sally, some would be Rouge the Bat, some would be anime girls, everybody would just be fucking everybody else, and eventually I think people would get to the
Degenerate
point-
fantasy.
Yeah, degenerate, but not only degenerate fantasy.
Chaotic.
I think when you chaotic too, but when you use the
Knuckles
word
chaotic?
degenerate, think of the word degenerate for a second. You basically have a lack of generation. You have like fewer and fewer generative qualities. So you're not really generating that much force anymore. Where before we were talking about how when you silence the ego, how when you meditate, you have a stronger force build up. You're able to generate more power through non-attachment. And this is the complete opposite. This is the full-on attachment, but in this very fantastical setting. That's Luciferian. But Ahrimanic, which is what I was talking about originally related to Metal Sonic, for example, Ahrimanic would be just pure material, grounded in no spirituality whatsoever. So just very, very dry. And Rudolf Steiner made a comparison to blood being Luciferian, but bones being Ahrimanic. I don't know if I'm getting the right idea here. Do you guys?
Well,
Do you know what I mean?
I could see what you mean. How this goes all the way down to the very core of our being. There's always this divide between like this attachment to the material, and it's really just it goes down to the divide between the physical and the metaphysical, right?
But with metaphysical, like once you go, let's say, into the astral realm, I wouldn't say that is going closer to God. I mean,
Okay.
maybe it partly is,
Let me-
but it's not going.
Something that I just want to quickly say that it's not entirely related, but it just popped in my mind while you were saying this, was that like you were like defining attachment as like, okay, like these people have like these anime girl avatars and stuff like that, and it was kind of like they're all having sex with each other, like sort of like you were aligning like sex with attachment, basically, right? But it's
In the
kinda,
beginning, sex, but I'd say that infantilization is also a big part of it, where I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of these rainbow colors, pastel color. You can even see it right now.
We're going to be seeing a lot more of these rainbow colors soon. Okay, wait.
Oh,
Speaking
man.
of rainbow colors,
let
finish
me just finish what I was going to say before, which
Yeah,
was just that
yeah,
like it loops around, because you were also saying earlier in our talk that like the Kundalini energy is like a sexual energy. So it's like it's one of those things where it's like if you go so far into attachment, you can actually come out the other side into non-attachment. Is what it kind of sounds like to me.
I don't know, because
there might be
I
some
think
truth to that.
When you go into attachment, I think you become more like an animal.
Well, just think about it this way:
Okay.
if you detach from everything, then like you're almost like in a sort of space of nothingness, right? But if you attach to everything, then everything is equal. So then everything is the same as nothing. You know what I mean?
I think
makes sense.
you can either get there by accepting everything, that you're a part of everything, or going so deep into nothingness that you...
Yeah, exactly. Like they are two roads to the same place is what I'm trying to say.
But when you accept that you are a part of everything, that's different than just
being attached, isn't it?
Yeah, because when you're attached, I think you lose consciousness. You're not really working.
You're not autonomous. You're not self-aware. You're not self-aware.
Exactly. And I think that's another criticism of this robotization that we're in. So just like the little animals, they get into these robots. Same thing here. People just get stuck into whatever, I don't know, YouTuber, live streamer, media personality they like to watch. And at a certain point, they're just reduced to being this set of emojis that they put into the chat when their favorite person is on, or if they're a simp, you know, their favorite e-girl is on, and they cease to work on themselves. They just become like this extension. They become more of like a branch than the tree.
It is weird seeing people like make being a fan of a certain streamer into like their entire personality. And I'm not even not even trying to be too much like of a judgmental asshole about it, because I know sometimes you can just find cool people in like a community or whatever around a streamer. But yeah, I don't know what it is, especially when it's like people are really like dedicated in talking in these like super fast Twitch chats where like you can't basically say anything. You know what I mean? It like reduces your own voice down.
Well, as far as I know, streamers even have this thing where they want their audience to all reply at the same time, like, how old are most people here? Or like, what do you think? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you see a lot of stuff like put one in chat if you think this or that, you know.
It's a high
It makes you it totally but it makes you feel like you're part of the community if you're one of the people doing it. So I can see why like it has that effect on you, especially, you know, if you're really isolated and lonely and just don't have a lot of connections in general. Even something like that could be like,
I'm struggling to figure out if that's an attachment or a detachment, because it's like through attaching to the streamer community, you're like detaching from yourself.
Yes, you're losing you're losing your sense of self in favor of this. Well, I mean,
bigger self.
Well, not really bigger self, because it's
a community.
People do this to media in general, which is that they'll give themselves over to media, but like with the streamer in particular, it feels not more insidious exactly, but like
it's to a personality. It's to a personality.
It's to one specific person. I don't know. There's something weird about that. Something a little weird.
It is
like
a little odd,
right? Like all those Germans, they gave themselves up to this guy, and they had this hive mind.
The original streamer.
People are always like, you know, it's a cult of personality. People are always like, yeah, like he was a good public speaker. People always go back to points like that, you know.
Yeah,
he would have been a great streamer.
Right.
Absolutely. He's a successful streamer. It's probably
History
true.
repeats itself.
All right, guys, put one in chat if you want to kill the Jews.
That's basically what happened. No, but I was gonna bring it back actually to Chaos Emeralds, which is obviously a central symbol all throughout the Sonic games. So with Chaos Emeralds, I mean, we're talking about these big philosophical concepts of the shadow, of the self, of man versus nature. Probably one of the biggest levels of that is this idea of chaos and order and yin and yang, and you know these kinds of things.
Chaos control,
right? Which Shadow was able to do, obviously with the Chaos Emeralds. So, what do you guys view as the Chaos Emeralds? Obviously, when Sonic collects all 7, he's able to become Super Sonic. He's able to ascend and be like a Super Saiyan, essentially. And Eggman wants them for his own uses, you know, to power certain robots and stuff like that. So what do you guys view the Chaos Emeralds as being representative of? Knowledge, maybe, or power?
Well, they're like, if we're saying that 7 of them, and I know it was 6 in Sonic 1, but if we take canon being 7, that's like the 7 chakras. And that's also like the 7 sages that you would have in Hinduism, in Iranian folklore, and all kinds of... Yeah, in Zelda, exactly. So this number keeps repeating itself, and these are the steps, as I take it, to enlightenment. You take these 7 steps, you get, you know, further and further up the chain.
The ox herding story. 7. There's also 7 pictures.
I'm not familiar. What's the ox herding story?
It's like a Zen Buddhist or something, like it's like 7 paintings that represent like the stages of enlightenment.
Yeah, well, there we go. Perfect. And another thing is that with these emeralds, if we take chaos and order. I wish if you can look up Sri Yantra, SRI, and Yantra, YANTRA. Any of the Sri Yantras would do. And it's also just like the Kabbalistic tree of life, like a lot of the stuff. It's just this blueprint of creation. It's just the way of looking at what we're in right now, what this universe is.
Oh.
Yeah, so just, you can open any one of these cats you want. Oh, yeah, I mean, that's a mandala, so that's close to, it's a similar thing. I'd say a Sri Yantra is a little bit better for this particular illustration. But I had this wonderful Indian girlfriend who told me what these represent. So you have the ring over here, and of course Sonic is very big on rings. And the ring represents feminine energy, she said. It's like the ring of birth and death, the ring of life. And you then have this rigid square shape that's around it. And she says that represents masculinity. That represents...
Because it's order, it's structure.
Yes, exactly.
Straight.
It represents containing chaos in such a way as to balance out this force of Shakti.
And
Shakti
then we see
is
the
another
pyramids, or the triangles.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is,
And
what does that represent?
Yeah.
The
well,
focus?
I'd say that the triangles, at least my interpretation of it upon doing meditation, is that the triangles represent the various possibilities of existence. As far as it's like looking in perspective, it's like looking at the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you see all.
Oh, it's like the many sides of the jewel of life, or whatever.
Exactly.
The many faces.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's
And
why
this energy,
diamonds are kind of like, maybe we value diamonds because they sort of reflect that in a physical form.
Chaos emeralds, by the way.
Chaos emeralds.
Kind of like diamonds, like that.
There we
Well,
go.
they look way more like diamonds. That's true. But another word for this feminine energy is Shakti. And Shakti is this primal energy. It's the same thing as Ki, Chi. You know, you had in Dragon Ball, it was called Ki. In China, it's called Chi. It's this energy that's supposed to animate the entire universe. It's like life force, life energy. And
which is why the Egyptians made pyramids, not just the Egyptians, but ancient civilizations all across the world made pyramids because perhaps that structure, at least from what I understand, they understood it to be this powerful geometric shape for some of the reasons you're describing right now.
It's an energy conductor. In fact, I have one right over here. Look at this pyramid.
Nice.
This is an orgone pyramid. And orgone, that's another name, by the way, for this primal energy. That name was given to it by this German psychologist named Wilhelm Reich. And supposedly what ended up happening is he invented these orgone accumulators that you could sit in, and they're supposed to power up this life force. And then the FDA came knocking in, they burned his books, and they sent him to a psychiatric ward. I don't know what to tell you, but
I'm
yeah.
thinking he was onto something.
Yeah, but anyway, through this process of breathing techniques or whatever else, you can harness this primal energy from, like I said in the beginning, from your root chakra all the way up through, and it does feel like this liquid snake force that's going up.
I see. That completely makes sense with what I've heard. I've heard similar things just about from ancient cultures and like mythological things that what the understanding was of just these kinds of spiritual forces, I guess. But to bring it back to Sonic more directly, there was something else I wanted to bring up, which was the fact that Sonic is this streak of blue light and these colors in general. I mean, you have the game Sonic colors. You have each character having their own specific, kind of color signature. Where do you guys think, I mean, I guess the colors of the emeralds, are those meant to represent the colors of the chakras? Do you think that's...
Some, but not all.
The only thing I'll say in that is that they haven't always been super consistent with the colorization of the emeralds. So if they do mean something, they haven't done a good job keeping them the same color.
And what is the significance of that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
Such a classic line.
It's
Yeah,
really
I don't know
the
what else to
six
tell you
Chaos
about
Emeralds,
the
hardest.
colors. I mean, Sonic is blue, which is a higher frequency than red.
Okay, no, I remember. That was actually just a stand-in for what I was actually trying to remember, which is the rings. Okay, so the rings, I guess, in what we were just talking about, they're the feminine energy represented by
Yeah.
the circles, essentially.
And
Okay.
Sonic, in a way, if you saw him right now when he was blue, he was like a penis. You know, he was like a blue penis that was going
Just
fast
blue-balling.
into that, into the ring, into the vagina.
Right.
And so this is like a mythological procreation. This is a spiritual procreation of going through this higher
Birthing a new
stage route.
dimension.
Exactly, yeah. And I don't think it's a coincidence that when people talk about dying, they talk about seeing the white light, going through the light. And what I see when I meditate is not just the white light, but I also do see like this golden ring around that white light, like this portal that you go through. So I think, like, there's that old quote, as above, so below. So anything that we end up experiencing in the material world, as far as having sex, you could say that there is like a spiritual dimension to all of these things, where it exists both here and it exists elsewhere, just in a different form.
I wanted to also get into these little. Who made these? I don't know. Did you make these? This is Sonic, some sort of Sonic symbolism decoding thing. Penetrating the Spiritual Eye is the title of this one, and it shows this star that you see on all these like bumpers in the Sonic games, all these like little items, and usually it's on these bumpers, and you also see them in the bonus stage. Speaking of the bonus stage, actually, I wanted to talk about that too. So the bonus stages have always been this very strange realm that Sonic enters, and they look like some sort of DMT trip or like shroom trip, LSD, some sort of psychedelic experience. And they have these strange, reverberating effects and colors, and they just look very bizarre. And there's up is down, down is up. The directions are constantly changing. Time isn't even real. It's just this alternate realm. Right here, there's a picture of a bonus stage from Sonic 1. And we have all the bumpers right here with the stars. We have all the rings right here. And then we have these structured sort of diamond shape. Well, these are really pyramids, I guess. And right here on the right, what is this on the right that we have?
This is a Tibetan Buddhist mandala. So it's a similar idea of showing the universe in this particular form, just like the Sri Yantra.
So that's an interesting parallel. Obviously, they look kind of similar.
A lot of wheels around.
Yeah.
Wheels of life, like the Dharma wheel, or what? What is
Exactly, yeah. Dharma wheel. Same thing with the ring. So similar things, just different ways of illustrating them. And when it comes to these
that?
zones,
Just enters the Chaos Emerald.
Exactly. Well, when it comes to any of these zones, I view it personally like, if there was a heaven, I believe in reincarnation. But if there was a heaven that people would, let's say, spend some time in, I imagine that would just be the astral realm. So according to, I don't know who, a lot of people say this, whatever. According to whoever, the astral realm is like the realm of thought and imagery, but without materiality. So just imagine a realm, again, where you could do whatever you want, where there are no physical rules constraining you. So if
just
you
imagine.
Think of something,
that's the key word.
Just imagine.
Just imagine.
Exactly. But this is why it's makes sense to me why we don't start off in the astral realm in this life.
Well, maybe we do. In the life before. Maybe.
Yeah, in this life. In
between lives, where they're.
Yes, that's what I meant.
In this lives, I think we may experience something akin to that. But why we don't experience it in this life, I think, is because if we didn't have any challenges to overcome, then there wouldn't be any growth. There would only be stagnation. And again, like, if people could teleport and fly and do whatever the hell they wanted to, then I don't think we'd have anything to learn. I don't think we'd be able to appreciate anything if we can do everything.
You need hurdles, obstacles, and physical ones are pretty hard to get past with just, you have to deal with a lot of things to make it through a physical realm, It's a lot of obstacles. It's like an obstacle course, really, which is what Sonic is always doing, by the way. He's going through the obstacle course of life at an accelerated pace.
Exactly.
and that's what you're simulating.
And you see over here the Freemasonic
Yeah,
Hall.
explain the
It's got-
Freemason connection here, because that's really fascinating. You have the checkered patterns on a lot of Sonic levels, but most notably here we have Green Hill Zone, and we also have the bonus stage, which has these checkered patterns. So yeah, if you want to explain some of that, go
Sure.
for it.
So the checkered patterns, they symbolize duality. So black and white, but like in the grid pattern. So much like when you would make a video game, you would have, although this would be pink and purple and pink and black specifically, if you know what I'm referring to here in three-dimensional games, you would have this particular layout when you don't add in the skin yet. You would have just this black
Like
and
the
pink
PNG
coloration.
background.
The wireframe you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't do 3D work right now, so I'm not sure exactly what it is. But they have it in various 3D games. It's like when you don't have a texture yet, then you would just have this black and pink.
Or even just
background.
the default transparent background of any photo
Yeah.
editing software is a gray checkered board.
Yeah, so same idea there. So it's just this idea of there being this duality, that we're living in this dualistic landscape as opposed to being in the oneness of the universe. So the universe has decided to split itself into all kinds of different personalities, into you, into me, into Cybershell over here. So with that, we get to experience what it is like to not be oneness. So to not be everything by being something as opposed to everything. So there's me, and then there's everything around me, which I have no idea if it's real or not, but that's also a kind of duality. And then you have the two columns in Freemasonry over here, the solar and lunar, and again, that's back with all the other stuff we mentioned, the columns of severity and mercy, balancing those two energies to get up. And again, like in Freemasonry, it's very similar. Their consciousness chart, the various degrees, the steps to get up, just like the Kabbalistic tree of life. So again, all this stuff, I think at the end of the day, it all talks about the same stuff, going basically back into this higher state. But I guess the difference, according to Steiner, the difference is that you don't go back where you came from, like going back into the womb in the same state as you originally came out. Because the idea is that you're supposed to be training your ego. And when you get your ego, you become better at knowing yourself as apart from everything else, but you could also use your ego to inflict pain on others knowingly, and that's, I think, what evil is, when you knowingly do something to harm somebody else.
I can't help but notice this shape here that you're pointing out in this image. It looks a lot like the Triforce from Zelda. This one with the three triangles right here. It's
Actually, the one to the left of the circle, like the one that's in a circle. If you go to
right
the left,
here.
yeah, there exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, you see a lot of this stuff. I mean, someone listening to this right now might scoff at the idea that we're looking so deep within Sonic, right, for these kinds of symbolisms and philosophy. But the way I view it is like any form of art that's really good, really well made, is transcendent. And that's the simplest way to put it. And so, there's a reason Sonic has been one of the most popular video game franchises, and why it's been such a cultural icon. It's because it's a really good game series. It's well made and it's well constructed. And part of that construction are these patterns that you could see not just in Sonic, but there's parallels of it that, I don't know how deep we want to get into this, but part of me could even accept the fact that maybe on some subconscious level, when you're playing through Sonic, when you're playing through these games, especially as a kid, there is some sort of recognition of the fact that there is a depth to the symbols presented, that there is these, because you may not perceive it, but your brain does, that kind of thing. Right?
Yeah, like we were saying earlier, even if the Japanese developers weren't fully cognizant of all the meanings behind every single one of these symbols, like the fact is the symbols are in the game and they will imprint themselves onto your mind, and you'll take that with you through life, and you'll make these connections, and that's what these people, like, these ancient civilizations have been doing for years, is studying symbols and tracking them, and like these are symbols can like mean certain things to certain cultures, and it will affect the way you perceive a piece of media or just a piece of art, and whether you're consciously realized it or not, those are aspects that are in the game. Therefore, I feel like they're worth examining. Not, you know, not every single, that's all death of the author thing. Not every single aspect of a piece of art has to be intentionally put there to be elicit one specific response, you know?
No, it's interpretation, like we said. And that's, nothing we're saying is definite in the sense that like the developers put this checkered pattern to invoke this specifically. It's just like you're saying, it's kind of this interpretation thing that you could see in a lot of different things. But Sonic happens to be, I think, a great vehicle for a lot of these symbols.
Great vehicle is also the name of Mahayana Buddhism.
No
what
way.
Mahayana
No way.
Great vehicle.
That's pretty awesome. Speaking of great vehicles, so one thing I wanted to talk about, back to the characters and maybe what they represent. A character I've always found interesting, given my Discord picture, is Tails. And I think the reason I found Tails interesting is because the way he was expressed, maybe largely in Adventure 1 and 2, Tails was always like this guy who was inspired by Sonic, who admired Sonic, who wanted to be cool like Sonic. In fact, there's even, I know the song is, I don't know how canon this is, but the Tails theme song, there's lyrics like, want to be just like him, or want to be cool, or like there's this kind of,
I want to fly to the highest of all the heavens.
Right.
Yes!
I don't know if it's canon that he specifically said it, but like those like elements, like those feelings, I feel are canon to Tails.
right. And Tails obviously is known for flying the tornado. And I feel like Tails kind of represents this boy-like aspiration to great heights.
Well, everyone like wants to be Sonic, but like, I mean, no matter what you say with your fancy OC, you're probably more like Tails. I mean, especially as like a kid who likes Sonic, you know what I mean? You're like, it's like, it's kind of interesting to have a character that's not quite, a self-insert. I don't know if you want to be Tails exactly necessarily, but like, he you're in a very similar situation to him. And, I actually, honestly, it's not like the most mind-blowing, War and Peace, Crime and Punishment level deep thematic reading that you get from like literature. But just as a kid, I always appreciated like just the themes of, wanting to appreciate someone and admire someone, but want to, grow up and be your own person and stuff too. And, have your own identity.
It's a lot easier. I think it's a lot easier, at least in the original Sonic games, to play as Tails, if I remember correctly, because you could just fly over the level. So there's less pressure being a kid than when you're an adult.
Yeah, and Tails kind of has this attitude of being, this kind of maybe a little bit naive, but very good-spirited, lighthearted, innocent kid. Yeah.
Yeah, he's intelligent but naive, which is an interesting sort of combination for a character to have.
Do you guys think Amy had a crush on Shadow?
I mean, it is funny that it's like a meme everyone makes fun of, like, there's only so many humanoid hedgehog characters, but Shadow is like totally different color. But hey, maybe from behind she just thought it was Sonic with a fresh coat of paint.
Yeah, if it's dark enough, then maybe there's no difference.
Sonic's bad boy look.
Yeah, but as far as also looking at this egg robot, it almost looks like a human brain. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but like the shape of just this shell that Eggman rides in.
Oh my God,
some of the humanoid robots that he makes are kind of interesting, and they definitely have like a weird shape, and like sort of like always made me wonder, like what was the inspiration behind this exact sort of design?
Well, I think pretty much all Japanese robot designs, even going back to the Japanese Kappas and various demon entities, there is something incredibly creative and very cartoon-like. If you look at, if you go to the Metropolitan Museum or any other museum and you look at some of the Japanese artwork on the walls there, it's different from the Chinese art in that there's a similar style in how it's presented. There's not the same kind of perspective as it is in Western art. But what's different specifically in the Japanese, I find, is the facial expressions. There seems to be a lot more playfulness going on in those, back in the, who knows, like medieval times or 1700s or whenever. And I think that a lot of that same quality has carried off into anime and into various game design and things like that, like this very playful nature. And it may be because, this is just a guess on my part, it may be because, number one, there was a lot of pressure. There weren't a lot of resources in Japan, and I think that created maybe some kind of a concentration to get closer to the spiritual realm. And number two, is I think that Shintoism, which is this religion of animism, this belief that everything around you has a spirit.
Life. Yeah.
That there is something to that that allows people to perceive further, deeper into the spiritual realm and be able to grab all these very fun-looking, Pokemon, all these various characters out of that realm.
Right. And Sonic is a great representation of that because, out of these innocuous animals, I guess, they're able to pull these, wild, fantastical characters like Knuckles the Echidna. I didn't even know what an echidna was until I heard about Knuckles.
They're actually so cute in real life.
They're a strange animal. One of the only egg-laying mammals.
Really?
Oh, really? But does that mean Knuckles lays eggs?
Well, I think only the females do, but who knows? You never know with these weird fucking animals. Like Yoshi lays a lot of fucking
Ken
eggs.
Penders should have included that in his Mobius 25 years later.
They do have echidna eggs, but they don't even make a big deal out of it. They're just like, yep, we're from eggs, no big deal. Just like a chicken.
Have we ever
By the
gotten
way,
confirmation that Knuckles is a guy?
In character bios, yes. I don't know if there's ever been a point in the game where he turns the camera and says, "By the way, I have a dick. I'm a dude."
I mean, he was a staunch supporter of feminism in that particular episode of Sonic Boom. But other than that, I'm not sure. But with somebody like, now that I thought of him, somebody like Ken Penders, that is an example of trying too hard with your lore, which I think the Sonic Archie comics have been a little bit guilty of. I mean, I read a few of them. I don't know, Cybershell, were you a big Archie reader?
I did. I sort of fell off at a certain point. I wasn't all the way all chips in on Archie, but I did like it back in the day. And yeah, it is absolutely a case of just from the sheer virtue of the comic running for so long, so much just lore and bullshit accumulated in the backstories of all these characters. Even there were a few towards the end, there were even some reboot situations where they sort of is partially because of Ken Penders and partially just because of other reasons they cleaved a lot of the unnecessary lore from the universe, which some fans weren't too happy about because you spend 20 years building up all this crazy lore. People get a little attached to it, but it definitely got a little bloated, and the new IDW series has sort of a fresh start where it's mostly just to take on the game canon with some additional elements.
Do you think this means that Princess Sally, who I saw in my youth in that coloring book, do you think that means that we're never going to see her again? That Sega's just decided to
sadly, I think that is the case. I think we will never see Sally again. I mean, she had a good run in the Archie comics for many years, and Sadam, she was popular in there too. It's funny because they do own the rights to her. Sega does. They could use Sally, they just don't want to because it is at the end of the day a Japanese company, and none of them probably give a fuck about Sally because she wasn't in any Japanese media.
Yeah, well, it's even difficult. The word Sally with two L's. In Japan, I may be getting this wrong, but don't Japanese people not pronounce L's like we do? There's a different kind of pronunciation.
It's kind of weird, honestly. It's not even people just say they'd say L's as R's or vice versa. People say it's vice versa because it's they have one sound that's between an L and an R, so it can be confusing. It's only really confusing on names that have L's and R's, but yeah.
Yeah, I could see Sally Sally. I could see Sally being a hard sell. But a friend of mine, actually, his dad owns Archie Comics now. He didn't used to own Archie Comics before, but his father did, grandfather. And eventually he took the company back. So surname Goldwater, that's the guy who used to own Archie Comics. But now it doesn't really matter because Archie doesn't own that property anymore, right? Sega owns everything and Archie doesn't have any.
Yeah, I don't even know exactly the legal details of how it went down, but yeah, the Archie comic ended and then Sega pulled their licensing deal, which they had that's just interesting because at the beginning they basically, back in the early 90s, they basically let Archie just do whatever. They didn't give a fuck. But then nowadays, if you want to do a Sonic comic, Sega's oh no, you can't do this, you can't do that. They have a lot more strict rules and regulations for what you're allowed to do with the character.
Which is ironic because the Sonic fandom, they do allow just Sonic fans to make their own fan games and to do whatever they want.
For a bonus stage, you should go earlier on. Yeah.
It is interesting how they are pretty chill about the fan works and not at least chill in the sense they're not going to take legal action about you, but Yeah, it is interesting how the Sonic fans have done so much to characters in their own mind, their own canons and head canons and stuff that it is funny that they have a lot of really weirdly strict rules about Sonic. Like he's not allowed to show too much emotion, which I sort of understand. You don't want your main character crying all the time or whatever, but like I don't know. They just have some specific rules and restrictions that people I guess at the end people found a little like, hamstringing them when they wanted to tell more dramatic stories than Archie, but like I said, there's something to be said for keeping the story simple for Sonic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked about Sonic 06 and look how
Exactly.
wrong it can go.
It's easy to fuck up a Sonic story by either doing way too much complicated bullshit or just not getting the tone right.
But
I've always
I did
viewed.
have a great. Yeah?
Oh, go on. You can go on.
No, I want to hear what you got to say first.
Well, I was gonna say, remarking on the levels, I've always viewed the Sonic levels as like this dystopian kind of future as well. Not every level necessarily, but a lot
As
of
you go further,
yeah,
into
like
the game.
there's oftentimes a casino level, which is like very, and they'll have like
Right.
these eccentric, like smiling faces, like Robotnik themed faces or whatever. And it's sort of this dystopian, creepy vibe that's like super bright and eccentric, but it's kind of all shrouded in this darkness in a way. And you also
Yeah,
see
I
like
always
the
loved
chemical plant
That's
zone.
Sega
Yeah.
is Sega's Yakuza allegedly. I gotta
Yeah,
say
apparently they allegedly have ties to the Yakuza. I wouldn't know anything about that.
wow.
I'm only working my way through the Yakuza game series now. I'll have to report back on that later.
That's
But
how
yeah,
they get
Their
you started.
autobiography.
there was a video I saw. I wish I could remember what it was called, but it was alleged that what Sega did is they just locked up, or not locked up, but they basically forced the employees who didn't want to quit to just be in this isolation room for months on end.
I don't even know what this is like. Like I don't know enough to definitively state whether this is true or not. But like, there's some weird corporate shit going on in Japan that I'm only more familiar about this with in terms of Konami and what they did to Hideo Kojima. And like, they wouldn't fire him, but they like wouldn't let him visit his team, and like they kept them like locked in separate like parts of the building. Like, there's this weird thing in like their corporate culture where they don't always want to be direct with each other, and they'll do like weird shit, like to force people to quit or just put them in horrible situations and like
Yeah.
demoralize them and stuff. Like, I don't even know. I'm not even saying like corporate America is better in a lot of ways, but like there's just like a different vibe in Japan.
I don't mean to go off the subject here, but why exactly was Kojima done so wrong? What did he do, or what exactly happened there?
I don't even know if we know like the full story behind everything about it, but he had just reached like a certain auteur status and he was taking forever to finish Metal Gear Solid 5. Like, I feel like they sort of regretted giving him so much like freedom and stuff. And he felt like, I mean, I don't know if he felt like he was like too big for Konami or whatever. I think he would have been happy just working there if they had a good relationship. It also had partially to do with just Konami changing their business plan in general to be less focused on making good video games, and now they're just more focused on pachinko machines, gotcha, and just anything that can make as much money as fast as possible. And I think that caused some friction between them.
Sega, I think, similarly teamed up with Sammy, which is one of the
Yes.
pachinko makers.
Yes, it's actually kind of crazy, like how big a thing pachinko is in Japan, because it's basically just their form of gambling. Because I mean, it is gambling, really. There's really
It's
no.
not called gambling. It's not
figure out
gambling. It is.
It is literally just gambling, but for some reason, gambling is illegal there, so they can't just go to like a casino. Not that I'm saying that would necessarily be better, but it's just kind of funny. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is that pachinko and that kind of shit, which like a Westerner could just like be like, I don't get it, but it makes so much money. Like, so much of Sega Sammy's money comes from the Sammy side of just that kind of bullshit, and way less than you think comes from like because it costs a lot of money and a lot of effort to make a good video game. You know what I mean?
But then look at something like Sonic Mania, which I
Right.
think it's a great game. I have a feeling that maybe, I don't know, if Sonic Team or Sega in general, they seem a little bit reluctant just with this whole idea of like, what is this, like, newcomer coming in and making our Sonic game for us?
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah, we don't have any like proof that this is totally what happened, but it definitely does seem like if you were this in charge of Sonic Team and the Sonic Forces came out not that long after Mania, and game got pretty savaged by reviews and not a great fan reception, whereas everyone loved Mania. And it's like everyone was just expecting them to make Mania 2. Like, of course they're going to make Mania 2. Mania 1 made them a lot of money and it got great reviews. You'd have to be insane not to make a Mania 2. Well, it is Sega we're talking about, and it's been
Yeah.
like about 4 years now. It doesn't really seem like we're getting a Mania 2 anytime soon. And the people who made it are, there's like most of them work at a place called Evening Star, and they're off just doing their own thing now. So maybe it wasn't that simple. Maybe they didn't even want to make a Mania 2 right away. But the fact that we don't even have anything, nothing's been announced, like it is it definitely gives you that vibe that like they were kind of embarrassed that they got shown up by just a bunch of fan game developers.
Yeah, they're like the sisters of Cinderella,
I think
They're
that
not-
kind of lends the fact that Sonic has such a thriving fan game scene and so many great imaginative ones kind of lends itself to the purity, the amazing, I guess, purity of the original games, where a Sonic game isn't so. It's almost this thing, the Sonic universe in general, I guess, and this is true of a lot of games, granted, but Sonic is a good example of this, where it's almost this thing that doesn't belong necessarily to Sega. It doesn't belong to one game developer. It's because it has all these sort of symbols and like, I guess.
Don't forget the fan games too, right?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fan games. I'm saying the fact that
sorry.
fan games are able to be so successful and so well made is because they're how do I explain this? They're basically using elements from Sonic from the Sonic universe that translate well into any number of combinations, which is kind of indicative of the fact that they're good core elements of the game. Whether it's the gameplay itself or the visuals or the characters and the environments. Like, these things are so interpretable. That's really what I'm getting at. They're so interpretable to many different
I
iterations.
think I get what you're trying to say, and just I want to say that I do agree with you in that, like, yeah, like maybe an individual Sonic game might not be good, but like we were saying earlier with this character design being so iconic, like all the ingredients for a great recipe, they're in there, but whether it comes down to whether you can make them well or not. And it is really interesting to think about how, like, the song, like, not every franchise is lucky enough to have as big and large and as many dedicated fans who've been doing it for so long as Sonic. Like, a lot of franchises, if they, they'll still get fan art and whatnot. It's not like a fandom will completely die just because the main company doesn't want to make new games or whatever. But like, if Sega just said, we're never going to make another Sonic game, like if they just said that for some reason, the Sonic fandom would just, pick up the slack, keep making games, it would just keep going strong. You know what I mean? It really, I can't imagine. It's hard for me to picture the Sonic fandom dying out for any reason.
Why can't Sega strike some kind of deal, less work for them? Maybe they could pay some of their fans to make these games and maybe do a little bit on the back end themselves and team up and maybe make some money that way. I don't know.
It's weird
crazy?
because they basically did that with Mania, and people
Yeah,
expected them to
exactly.
do it more. And it's not that, I mean, they've hired like members of the fan community and stuff, like Aaron Weber, the guy who infamously made the Sonic Twitter account into sort of a meme machine. Like, he got a nice new job. I mean, he was working with them when he was doing that, of course, because he was, in charge of the social media. But now he's got another job with Sega of Japan. So, like, they do hire fans and stuff. But I totally get what you're saying. Like, they should lean way more into the fan game stuff. Then again, it's risky. You don't want to. I mean, in Sonic's case, they're lucky enough to have, people have been doing this for 20 plus years. They've got a good grasp on things. Whereas in general, I can understand why a company would be a little hesitant to just be like, yeah, let's just make a fan game official. What could go wrong?
It's I think there's some hesitation because and maybe the success of Sonic Mania is even proof of this, which is that if it becomes too open source, let's say, if it becomes too much about the fans, then it's like eventually, well, why do we need Sega? Why do we even
Right.
need
And for the
them?
record, just so everyone is on the same understands, like, Sega had been working with Christian Whitehead on like the iOS ports of the Sonic games, and then they like Sega actually hired them to make Sonic Mania. It's not like it was a fan game and then it,
Yeah.
then it got picked up. Like, so like if they could be involved in like because of that, they were able to retain all the profits and everything. Whereas if someone comes to them with a completed fan game, they're gonna have to give at least 50% of the profits to the original creator or something. Like, I don't know what the exact deal would be, but like, they don't want to they want as much money as possible. I think that's everyone understands that. So it would just be
But
a little.
is there a copyright limit for Sonic the Hedgehog? Like I know with Disney, they keep reinvigorating the copyright for Mickey Mouse. But
Well, by invigorating it for Mickey Mouse, they are also invigorating it for every other single fictional character. So like every time they've extended it for Mickey, that has also extended it. Well, the thing is, that's true what I'm saying, but also it's a little weird because Japan has separate, different copyright laws and stuff, and like it's weird. It's weird. It's weird. It's hard enough to wrap your head around one country's copyright laws, let alone multiple.
do you think that copyright law in general, I know this is like going all the way out of esoteric Sonic land, but I am curious what your predictions are for copyright law in general. Because I've been talking to some people think like, hey, we're living in this unprecedented time of the internet where some people are of the belief if there is a piece of content out there that multiple copies can be made of, unlike, let's say, some, I don't know, piece of metal, that you have to mine somewhere, that you have to extract from somewhere. This is something that an infinite amount of copies can be made of, like this Metropolis Zone video or this podcast right now for people to listen to.
I'm going to
Do
be
you
honest,
think-
I'm pretty
yeah.
copy left. I'm very much opposed to the restrictive nature of copyright and how like companies like Disney literally made their bank, like their iconic company image off of these old public domain stories. And then they immediately use their prestige and money to make that impossible for anyone else to do what they did by making like extending the range of copyright to some absurd degree.
If any game series could, I don't know if this has ever been done. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if any game series could sort of transcend that copyright realm and become, I think when you transcend that, in other words, let's say Sonic, the future of Sonic games and the Sonic universe is just a bunch of new fan games that are to varying degrees.
There's like Little Big Planet and like even Mario Maker are like sort of in that territory, right?
Right.
Like,
it's just crazy
but
to
it's
think
but it's in a contained way because it's all within the same game. But with Sonic,
but
it's
like
all separate games.
Dreams or whatever, the one like the new game from the Little Big Planet people is pretty like free range.
It is.
right?
But what I'm talking about with Sonic is like there's this Sonic universe. There's this Sonic mythos, and it's like how interesting. How interesting
It's
would
interesting
it
how
be if there was
Sega-
a game series that, like, let's say Sonic developed to be this decentralized mythos of game lore that no one company, including Sega, had the rights to. I mean, that would be it'd be like this universal culture of gaming, I guess.
We're close. I mean, Sega, it's funny because, like, yes, right now it's only because Sega has chosen not to be like Nintendo and, like, send these cease and desists. Like, it's one thing if some guy is out there, like, makes a game called Mario 5 and starts charging money for it and stuff. I kind of get why you would want to stop that. But, like, Nintendo's out here, like, stopping these free, like, fan games. It's, like, insane. Whereas, like, I don't know if how chill Sega would be if you like, if they made Sonic Mania without permission and then started selling it, like I don't think you can do that. But like I can see in that kind of hypothetical future, like the idea that anyone could like Sonic just being a public domain, like we don't get to have public domain video game characters because video games are just too new of a medium, But it's a very interesting thing to think about. In a way, we sort of have that in the sense you can just make a game and it doesn't have to be about Sonic, but you could just like make it make a quote unquote Sonic game, but not about Sonic. But the thing is, like you were saying, people are attached to the world and characters.
Yeah.
So.
That's the connection.
Yeah.
But it's loose enough. The thing with Sonic is that it's the world is vast enough, and yet
there's a lot of stuff you can do with Sonic for sure. Like there's a lot of different takes that you could do. Like if it was open for anyone's interpretation, for sure.
Right, and it is. That's the beauty of it. Yeah, sorry,
right.
Oh, before we go, I do want to tell you the idea that I had when I think I was 11 or 12 years old for both like a Sonic movie and Sonic video game idea.
Okay, go for it.
So Princess Sally was definitely involved. So
of course,
she ended up marrying Sonic. But then there was this hedgehog, this brown hedgehog from the past, like with brown fur, named Armo, who had like these two gigantic things over here. Armo. Armo. He wasn't brown. He was Sonic's brother, and he was green, and he had magnets for hands. So instead of having normal hands, he would like have magnets that fire bolts of energy out of. But then there was Darko. So sorry, the brown hedgehog was named Darko, and Darko had like these furry kind of like. What do they have in the sideburns? He had kind of like
chops. What are they called? Mutton chops?
mutton chops. Yeah, I mean they weren't really mutton chops. I'd say they were
They're
more
sideburns,
upper
yeah.
than lower. But anyway, Armo had two forms, like the regular hedgehog form, and then he had a form which looked a lot like. Do you remember Dark Matter from Kirby's Dream Land 2?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
Wiseman from Nights in the Dreams.
Right, right.
So it's
Yes.
like this ascended godlike form where he's just like wearing the spectral robe of consciousness. And Darko and Sonic, they fought, and in my version,
Nights into Dreams.
yes, Nights in the Dreams, and in my version, Darko ended up winning actually, but Sonic was not defeated. Sonic actually ended up turning into. This is actually the second sequel, which I didn't like as much. There's a Wiseman in the original one, just called Nights in the Dreams. But anyway, Sonic ended up defeated, but then Sonic ended up turning evil, and his fur ended up getting like darker into this dark shade of blue. And then Darko ended up, because I guess Sally was a widow, he ended up marrying Sally, and then Darko, kind of like this guy too. There's a similar vibe. Darko ended up turning into a good guy. So he ended up actually being a really good leader for the planet, really just leader. But then Sonic came back, and Sonic came back in the form of like this planet. So Sonic got so powerful that he turned into this crystal planet. So in the game, you would play a level playing the former bad guy, or I think also playing like Sonic Jr., who was like a lighter blue color. You would play him, and you would play inside of Sonic Zone, which is like this crystal cavern where you are actually inside of Sonic. And then you fight the Sonic inside of Sonic, who is evil now, and he's got like these dark dreadlocks that he could like whip at you, and that's supposed to be like his super ultra form. Because if you remember in Dragon Ball GT, what happened? First they were Super Saiyans, then they were Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3, but then with Super Saiyan 4, all of a sudden they got darker. Their hair didn't glow anymore.
Returned to a primal state.
Return to Monk.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
So same thing happened here with Sonic, where he returned to this dark blue primal state, but that's the core of this planet, which is also him. So when you hurt the planet, you hurt him. This crystal meteor that's about to hit Mobius. And there was this whole thing also with like going up this mountain into this sky castle and collecting emeralds to go into the emerald engine and fire at this incoming meteor that Eggman was launching. I also wanted it to be Super Eggman, so his mustache would start to light up yellow, but the chaos energy could also be used to power his mission. So it's like half of him is super, but also his metal contraption that he's in is also super. And lastly, I really wanted to have a boss battle with Metal Knuckles, if you remember from Sonic R. Metal Knuckles, who has this appendage to fire lots of missiles at you. So like these trackable missiles. So that's what I wanted. Who knows? Maybe in the future I'll be able to make a game like that.
I gotta say, like almost every single element sounds like a completely authentic, genuine, like '90s Sonic fan fiction level, which is awesome. I love it. Like everything from like it's the future, and he got married to Princess Sally. Like I love it. Like that's totally like legit. Like I was just hearing it. It's like yes, like this is like every. It honestly reminded me of like like little pieces, like almost like every little fan story I've heard over the years. But yeah, I used to have all these crazy like ideas like that as a kid, and I would never even like write them down because they would just get like so shitty. But it's like yeah, and then what if this happened? And then what if this happened? And I kept like going on and on. But yeah, I love that kind of stuff. And yeah, I was laughing because I do the same thing. I was like, yeah, what if they brought like Mecha Knuckles from Sonic R, because he's totally an underutilized character and stuff. So yeah, I can totally relate to that.
I also like this. He looks like he's wearing a bathrobe.
That reminds me, because and maybe this is one reason why I liked Sonic a lot as a kid, is because I used to go to school and like talk with some friends who were also playing I think it was actually Sonic Heroes at the time. So this was like in elementary school, and we would have all these like funny conversations, like talking about different ideas of like what we would have in a Sonic game, or in a, how, like, what is this weird rumor of this like other unlockable form of the Sonic Ascension, like Super Saiyan 4 Sonic, or so, something like that, some other like fantastical thing. And I think what it really comes down to with what we're all saying is that it's just what we've been saying all along. It's such a universe that lends itself to creativity and imagination and interpretation, and that's why
right.
It's still
it really is. Like there's a reason, like I mean, Mario is just more popular than Sonic by virtue of just, it's Nintendo's flagship, et cetera, et cetera. But like, if you could measure the amount of Mario fan art versus the amount of Sonic fan art, Sonic would win in like a landslide. Like, there's so many Sonic OCs. Everyone, it's like you just see that character design. It's so easy to like imagine just a different kind of character. And it is funny you guys are mentioning like Super Saiyan 4, like because I've seen that dark Sonic motif come up in a lot of Sonic type fan fiction stuff too, because that is like the next logical step. Like, you get Golden Sonic, and then they had Hyper Sonic in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which is a glowing white and also all a rainbow. He's like, so it's like every color. Like, there's nowhere to go from there. Just like there's nowhere to go from Super Saiyan 3. You can't make his hair get longer. It would look stupid.
There would have been a stage where his hair did grow longer. I did have that one as well, but he would have gotten faster, which doesn't make any sense. I mean, some of these forms look pretty ridiculous, but the Super Saiyan or Super Sonic 3 form, I think, I don't know, it could have worked. There could have been something there. But,
I've always been like, it's funny because I loved how, first of all, as a kid, I always just loved the different levels of transformation from Dragon Ball Z. I always thought it was great. Everyone loves that shit. So, I always loved how there was Supersonic, and then they introduced Hypersonic, and I was like, oh shit, imagine all the new forms they're going to see in the future. But then in the future, they not only did they remove the Super Emeralds, because they were only sort of there because of the weird lock-on thing where they needed 14 Emeralds because it was 2 separate games. The point is, like, now you only really see Supersonic. Like, occasionally, you would very rarely, it's mostly in side projects like the storybook games, you could get like Dark Spine Sonic. But for the most part, you would only ever see Supersonic, and that was like the only transformation. That was just the default transformation. I always wanted more differenter transformations,
Or at least have a Super Tails with the bird.
Yeah, that too. Great. Exactly. Like Super Tails and Super Knuckles, that was just like a thing. Like, of course, that was a thing. Like Super Tails wasn't a thing at first in 2, but then by Sonic 3 and Knuckles, you could have Super Tails, you could have Super Knuckles. But then, yeah, exactly. Even as soon as Sonic Adventure 1, it was just only Sonic gets to be super. And then it became a weird thing where, okay, Shadow can be super, okay, Silver, and then it's like only male hedgehogs get to be super. That's like the weird rule that they have right now.
And I like Lev.
Knuckles. Yes.
I really like your analogy to this idea of enlightenment and Supersonic sort of representing that. Collecting these Chaos Emeralds, collecting, I guess, really parts of the self distilled in this refracting gem-like form is what you could say the Chaos Emeralds represent. But just the idea, though, of Supersonic being this ascension, this enlightened state, I think that.
Yeah, that's the kind of like imagery you'll find all over throughout all of culture, which is ascending to this glorious golden godhood. Like, you can find that going so far back.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, even Halo, that was always a symbol of enlightenment, not just in Christianity and Buddhism and Hinduism. You have like that golden ring, like that golden ray of light.
Golden halo.
Exactly. And I think that there is also something even to the sun, where we have this giant thing that we always see when we go outside. For those of you listening who do go outside, we have this giant thing that's always there in the daytime, and we're so used to it. We're so used to this idea. There's just this giant, incredibly powerful thing that has just always been there for our recorded memory.
It's so easy to understand why all these ancient cultures sorry to cut you off, but it's like life. They have all the different versions of worshiping the sun, because the sun is powerful. It gives life, but it can also kill you. It can also give death. It's very complicated.
I had this realization, I guess, or I had this deeper appreciation for the sun while, I mean, this is kind of a different story, but while tripping the other week, and I was outside, and there was the sun and the clouds and the mountains and the ocean and this like big lush green forest, basically. And I viewed the sun as like, well, from the human perspective, from this earthly perspective, it's basically indistinguishable from God. It's the source of all light. It reveals all things.
It makes perfect sense why it was worshipped in like ancient Egypt and stuff. Like, you can totally understand why it's like, if, of course that's God. Look at it.
Right.
But Rudolf Steiner took it one step further. When he talked about light in general, he talked about how the older generation of humans, they had this understanding that their consciousness was light. And wherever light was, their consciousness was. They didn't distinguish themselves from the light. And in that sense, you're not just worshiping the sun like this weird fireball that's outside. You're worshiping the sun, as this light, as this higher aspect of yourself. which is out there, but you don't see yourself as being a stranger to it. You don't see yourself as just being here by happenstance. You see yourself as just being like the branch of the tree, with the sun being at the root of this tree.
Let me ask you guys something related to that. Hopefully, we're not going too far off in the weeds here, and I think we'll wrap up soon. But I do want to pose this question related to that. So I think there's multiple kinds of light, though, as we were talking about the light spectrum and all that. And I think the sun is like this, you could say, a natural light. Obviously, there's man-made light. You know, there's the artificial light. There's the light that I'm looking at through my monitor right now on my phone oftentimes. I think in some regard, you could call that the false light or the Luciferian light or the man-made light that's trying to compete with the God's light, the sun. But that aside, anyways, I think it's obvious that things are heading more towards, well, people, you know, you said if you go outside, well, you know, that used to be the default thing. And now it's more normal in developed countries to be staring a lot at this other type of light, this man-made light. Well, if that does head towards some sort of simulated reality that we find ourselves living in, what I want to ask you guys is that something, and let's say you could live in the Sonic universe, a Sonic reality, a Sonic simulation, let's say, within that false light, within the VR or the Matrix or whatever that becomes in the future, 10, 20 years, 30 years, whatever, whenever we reach that point where we're so fully immersed in that false light. I guess I want to ask, like, how do you feel about the prospect of being in that Sonic realm or being, you know, surrounded by that? Is that something you would accept? Would you be okay with? Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Cybershell, how would you feel about that?
I already feel weird when I'm in like an Oculus Rift standing in like Station Square. I don't know if I'd be okay with that.
Wait, you couldn't have like a three-dimensional Sonic adventure game now in VR?
You can like look, you can import certain like environments, and I would like that was one of the first things I did when I was in VR. Was just walking around old Sonic levels. Like, wow, this is what it's like. It's weird being in a 3D environment like that because you actually get a sense of scale. That like when you're like a disembodied camera, like 20 meters above a character, it just doesn't feel the same. It's like looking at a little diorama. Whereas when you're actually like in scale, it's like, wow, this is a big place. But it is also just sort of a weird thing in general. But yeah, I don't know. I always thought one of the weirdest things about the Matrix was like, why would you even make all the people connected? Why wouldn't you just give every single person their own individual bubble matrix? I guess it was too much computing power or something. But like, if that wasn't an issue, like that would be even more like scary to think about. Because at least in the Matrix, you can talk to other human beings and stuff. Whereas being in like a completely simulated world is kind of a weird thought.
I think that the reason why the Matrix was the way it was, at least how they explained it in the movie, was that when humans were given this perfect utopia environment, they felt something false about that. They needed some pressure in life to go against, which is why
that was
they made the Matrix.
That's what the Smith said. Agent Smith said.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember that.
I'm looking forward to the new Matrix. I wonder how that'll be.
I know, it just feels like such a, you know, just that they're all like ready for retirement now, and they're gonna. I don't know.
Yeah, it just
it is kind of weird. Like, I can't believe it's been this long, and you know, anytime it's been this long, there's just part of me that's like, okay, are they doing this because they want to do it, or is it just we need the money? Is it money time? Is it just time to make the money?
Right. But I guess again with the Matrix, like that's a story that also transcends the actual film itself. You know, watching the new Matrix movie will have very little effect on my like understanding or what I got out of the first one, because it's not about the actual plot lines so much as it is about the ideas presented in it.
I think that is like, I don't even like, the Matrix is on its own, on the face of it, just a very cool, very fun, well-told science fiction story. But like the whole Plato's cave thing is, I think that's why it resonated so hard with people. Like they felt something, they related to it in a way like of like, oh wow, like the false reality, you know, like it you know, people just resonated with that idea.
Right.
And so that Sonic realm would be a deeper layer within this Plato's cave. When I was mentioning before about like the bright colors and the rainbow colors and so on, if you think of a painting, like you think of some of the greatest paintings on Earth, like a Rembrandt, for example. What do you notice about Rembrandt? There aren't a lot of bright colors. Now I'm not saying that, you know, obviously you have something like the aforementioned Bach, Hieronymus Bach, who had, you know, more playful colors, you could say. But at the same time, the colors were still relatively subdued. My theory is that, I mean, it's not a theory. I mean, it's pretty obvious. When you have little kids who are just watching Nick Jr. or stuff like that, watching Dora the Explorer, which has really bad color design. So again, compare, for example, Japanese animation that little kids in Japan watch versus the American animation. I think American animation, not to say all of them, because obviously you have something like Gravity Falls, which has great color design, but I do notice this a lot, especially for the younger kids, especially on the iPads, for example, all the Elsa Gate tangential stuff. And I know it's not Elsa Gate anymore, but they still have like the same.
There's
kind
still
of,
like, yeah, there's still like automated videos that are just like
yeah,
popular characters, and it's like super basic. Yeah, and they use, I mean, of course, like you see it on YouTube, people use those eye-catching, garish colors in the thumbnail
exactly.
just to grab people's attention, you know.
And that's the thing. The colors are so eye grabbing. It's like, would you rather have a piece of, I don't know, 70% chocolate, or would you rather have this, this candy bar full of sugar and these bright colors? It makes sense why people would go for these bright colors, but I think it's also something that dulls your inner brightness. When you're not fighting against something, then I don't think you're utilizing your inner light. And I think as a response, your inner light gets dull, and you're just like an animal. You're just like running after the sugar high. You're running after this thing that you're attached to. And so I think it's very unhealthy to have young kids exposed to really bad color design early on. I know that's not the first thing that people like parents think of, but if you're not going to feed your kid nachos, when they're 2 or 3, why would you feed them bad art?
Bad
Yeah, it
media.
is kind of weird to think about. Like, yeah, people get so, they'll care so much about what their kid watches in terms of not letting them watch certain inappropriate themes or not letting them, eat certain kinds of food, which, that's a good thing, obviously. But like, yeah, people, they really will, like, it is just crazy to me. People just like give their kids an iPad and say, just go nuts,
Mhm.
just watch whatever the hell you want. Just like, I really, YouTube is just, there's too much fucking stupid shit on there. If I had a kid, I would have them have a very highly curated YouTube experience, which again, probably not the most fun thing if you are that kid, but
Mostly Cybershell videos. That'll be
yeah,
well,
yeah, exactly. Imagine some poor kid out there watching my videos. That's like his formative experience. The kid's gonna
look.
grow up to be a
He'll
deviant
learn how
Sonic
to.
fan.
He will learn how to do a crossover dribble because that was like,
Exactly.
yeah. Let's work on your crossover dribble. I still don't know what that is. I should have played more basketball. But anyway, when it comes to today's world, I think a lot of those kids, a lot of the Zoomers who grew up in that environment, we are seeing the end result of that, where I am not sure how much subtlety there is, both in the opinions that a lot of them have, as well as, and again, I don't want to generalize here. Obviously, there is outliers, but it does seem like everything's just become very, I don't know, just, I mean, obviously, it's an old cliche on the internet now to say how divided we are, but I do think that things have become way more just, I need to get a sense of gratification now, so I just need this thing to confirm whatever it is that I already believe, and there's not going to be any curiosity downstream from that.
It is interesting, especially with colors, like you mentioned. Like, I don't even like some of this is just greater trends, and I don't even want to say this is necessarily a good or bad binary thing. But like, just look back in like the 2007, 2008 era. What were all the popular games? They're all like brown, muddy shooter games. Whereas if you look at like Fortnite now, all the games are like, in Fall Guys or Among Us, even all the games are super bright colors, super pop in your face, get your attention kind of games. Which like you could probably make a great argument that Fortnite has better like art direction in general than like Call of Duty, and I wouldn't even disagree with it. But there is just something to this trend. I think you're right about.
I don't even think Call of Duty would be an example of, hey, this is better. What I'd say
Right.
is better is when you actually have a good balance between those two. For example, I don't know if you like watching Akira Kurosawa movies. There is a movie of his, Ran, which I think has some of the best color design I've ever seen. Because you have colors that are in nature, but you also have, for the uniforms, like this very juicy, bright color. So I don't think it's a matter of saying, let's get rid of all the bright colors. It's a matter of like balancing out. Where do you have the bright colors where they're going to actually stand out, as opposed to everything just being oversaturated?
It's
Right.
it kind of relates to the whole false light thing, I feel like, where if you just, it's almost like you have to see these colors unfold in your own experience, in your own interpretation, if you will. And I feel like that's what the visual aspect of psychedelics kind of invoke within you, is like the world around you is now up to your interpretation, and it's now far more interesting visually and stimulating visually than it was before. And when, One thing I've heard from Terrence McKenna that's really stuck with me is that he talks about how if you watch TV, or and I guess in this example, to playing a game is to some extent like this, but especially if you're watching TV, if you're watching a video, watching movies, what's happening is your senses are being captivated, audio and visual, by someone else's trip that they've made for you, someone else's interpretative world that is being presented to you. And I think one of the concerns that maybe there is with kids, just being on iPads and just being from an early age engrossed in these captivating, visually stimulating worlds is that, well, their imagination is dulled. Their inner light, as Lev is calling it, is dulled because they're so exposed to this trip that's made for them, that's to captivate them. But by doing so, they're no longer the auteur of their life experience.
Right.
They're merely just a bystander.
Yeah, I don't hate video games. I'm not don't misinterpret what I'm trying to say here, viewer. I'm talking to you right now, which is that but yeah, if you are just constantly engaging with something highly addictive and fun and just well designed, like Fortnite, you're gonna have less time just to be imagining things, and the things you start to imagine will be within that kind of framework. It won't be, you're just being conditioned to think a certain way. I'm not even saying this is CIA conditioning. It's just it will inevitably happen if this is just your primary means of interacting with the world is via a screen or something like that.
But I think there's a balance too, and maybe our generation had the luxury of this balance was just easier to find. But when you have a little bit of that, when you're playing some Sonic or you're playing some game growing up, but it's not something you're constantly immersed in.
This is absolutely 90s boomer bias right here, but it definitely felt I could play a video game and then I could just experience the real world. It wasn't like I was always on some kind of screen, and even when I wasn't on a screen, there was a screen in my pocket that I could whip out if I felt I meant I needed to check my numbers and make sure they're good or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't know. Part of it was just being a kid. Part of it was just being a kid in the first place, but also just I think in the 90s where I was a very tech person. Even I was on the internet starting a lot, starting 2001, but even then. The internet just felt way more separate, even though it wasn't. It was still just the internet, but it wasn't just thoroughly ingrained into every aspect of your life. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's probably going to come a time where there is going to be somewhat of a split between people. I mentioned this on the Break the Rules stream earlier on when we had Glink on, and the idea is from Nietzsche, I believe, although I don't think he's the first to come up with this, that human beings will split in terms of the people who are going to be attached to the machine versus the people that are going to transcend it. And those who transcend it will have power over those who do not, and those who do not are going to be kind of like those flickies, those little animals stuck inside of the robots.
That have to be free.
Well, when you say that, I just can't help but picture that infamous image of Mark Zuckerberg walking next to all those people in the Oculus headsets.
Right. Exactly. Mark Zuckerberg's like Dr. Robotnik.
Yeah, pretty much the modern day version.
Well, actually, speaking of that was an image that I used in an earlier thing. So, Glink, I don't know if you have access to the screen over here. Could you be able to look up real quick the Pop Cult on YouTube? Pop Cult Sonic the Hedgehog. So Pop Cult was a series that I did with my friend Monica Walker. She recently had a baby. And this one over here. So this was the original Esoteric Secrets of Sonic the Hedgehog. This is done way, way, way back in the day, 2017. And if you scroll a little bit further down, this is me and her running like Sonic the Hedgehog. A lot of complicated animation I added over here. But further on, frame rate, as you notice, not the greatest. But further on as you go, there's going to be a sequence where Zuckerberg is going to be in there. I think it's around this time over. Yeah. So no need to forward. You were almost there. Yeah. So go back there. But anyway, the whole thing about Zuckerberg. I agree. I think that maybe some people are going to be freed, but then again, maybe some people are just going to become stuck forever, and I don't know what's going to happen to them. I mean, this is one of the big issues of the time that a lot of people were in the intellectual circles talking about, like the H.G. Wells crowd, all the early 20th century intellectuals. One of the things that they were talking about was population control, how they were talking about we have so many people out there. Yeah, maybe it's skipped or maybe it's going to be a little bit later. Let me actually take a look at myself while this is going on. But anyway, their whole issue was about population control. How can we control the populace so that it doesn't get too big? And maybe what we're seeing right now is the end result of that, consciously or not consciously. Just, I'm curious what you guys think of that. Do you think that there is some kind... Oh, there it is. There it is. You found it. Yes, over here we have the people with the fluorite stare, a little Robotnik running around in this level. Here we go. And yeah, I don't know. Oh, and there's Zuckerberg
Wow,
ate
that's
him.
kind of. Oh my God, that's the belly of the whale. That's Jabu Jabu's
Yeah,
belly.
exactly,
Wow,
exactly.
this is terrifying me because that exact picture is, man, I guess this is just more testament to how culturally significant, I guess, video games could be. But this exact frame is what I used for the thumbnail of one of my videos talking about father figures, and I used Jabu Jabu's belly.
Belly of the whale.
Yeah, but that's so interesting. Yeah, Cybershell, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I try not to be too pessimistic, I mean, I try to be realistic without being overly pessimistic. I'm not even like worried about the Zoomers so much, but like think about the generation that's going to come after the Zoomers, like, because I already feel like they were more technologically like, just the thought that like, you're growing up and like since day one, you're going to be looking on, you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, you're just like connected in a way that people didn't used to be. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm not even saying it's always necessarily bad, but like it's definitely going to leave people predisposed to just, following the quote unquote, whatever, social manipulating mind control that people want to like use against, the general populace.
Yeah, and even if it's not, like, I think sometimes people get caught up in like, oh, like whether or not it's a planned out thing or not. Like it almost doesn't.
Yeah, every time I say it like that, I don't mean that there's like Illuminati, like we're gonna control people via making Sonic games or whatever. It's just like, it'll just happen. Like it just happens whether you want it to or not.
It's like an algorithm, or it's like just a
Yes.
tendency that takes advantage of the lower parts of human nature, I would say.
This was going to happen either way, but now in the future with algorithms, it's like literally just going to be straight up happening. You know what I mean?
I would say if we're to take something from Sonic, the way to move forward in this uncertain future with multiple paths is to charge ahead with confidence, with some level of detachment from the world and some clear direction forward, and be in that zen-like stoic state of Sonic and just kind of be cool about it.
It sounds silly, but like I agree with you. Like try to be like Sonic. Try to exist in nature, not try to be too much like within the systems of all the machines and everything. And yeah, just try and I guess just to say think for yourself, but I guess everyone thinks they're thinking for themselves at all times anyway. So, but like really like just find your own way, find the things you think are cool, and try to be like that.
Exactly.
That was a very nice comparison when you were saying find your own way. It had the image of that puzzle piece. I think that was from what was that HBO show with the Wild West?
Oh yeah, the Westwood thing. I noticed that, and I was like, huh. I was just talking, and it was like, but I'm watching the video.
Sometimes there's synchronicities like that.
Yes, indeed. Oh, that famous Sonic ice cream cone. I never had that one when I was young.
Your videos on Sonic, I mean, just with the muted audio, obviously feels like some sort of acid trip with Sonic in it.
There's some really funny visuals just going on.
No, but it's great. I mean, it's in a way, you were talking about this stuff all along, I guess, but.
Well, this description over here, Monica and I are basically talking about the Sonic 1 levels, talking it as being his hero's journey, and how here, when he's almost at the goal, he has to go back into that labyrinth zone and take the... and I know that there is like a shorter path. Oh, see? I have that image from the anime of Sonic falling
I mean,
down.
I'm amazed that...
that's cute. That was cute. I like that. That's some good editing. And yeah, it is interesting the way that, like right before you literally see a Robotnik, and you're like, I'm going to get him, and they throw you down in here. And yeah, there is the fast path, but like, most people playing, especially as a kid, did not know about that.
Oh, look, it's an Alex Gray painting.
This is all great, but what I'm really amazed at is the fact that you got a grown woman to sit down and talk with you about Sonic. That's the most impressive part.
No, she was very much into it. She had a great time, and the reason there are nuns on the screen, by the way, is she was saying none, and I just put like nuns on the screen.
That's a good visual gag.
Yeah.
And the water is purple, so it's like a higher frequency water. And I think I put a picture of purple drink somewhere in here as well when we were discussing it. Oh,
There
here
you
we
go.
go. There's
Sun and the moon. The sun and the
yeah.
moon.
Exactly. My dad did that painting, by the way, in the backdrop. He's great. And by the way, when you become a patron of Break the Rules, patreon.com/break the rules, exactly how it's said, then for $20, you are going to get one of my dad's beautiful magnets. He's got all these exquisite magnets, and for $50, you can get a custom wooden magnet. So whatever design you want. Yeah, this is Break the Rules. We're going to have, by the way, the Roast of Turkey Tom coming up this Wednesday, which is untraditional for BTR because usually it streams every Tuesday and Thursday at around 5 o'clock. But we've got a lot of very interesting people on. Our basic thing, by the way, in Cybershell, I would definitely love to have you on as a guest for Break the Rules whenever we can make it happen. You're really inspiring. I don't even know what to say. Entertainer, what I don't know. You're good at this
Internet
stuff. You know what
guy. Yeah, it sounds like fun. I'd be down to go on for sure. Sometime,
Excellent.
definitely.
And it was
Excellent.
I'm really glad to have both of you on. I just one conversation with Lev, I'm like, oh, the fact that he's into Sonic and like thinks about things in this way is going to be a great match with Cybershell. So
For sure.
I'm really glad. This was kind of like impromptu, but I'm glad it happened, and we could do
here,
this again
buddy.
sometime.
Yeah, this was fun. I'm always down to just shoot the shit about Sonic and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And also, I forgot one more shilling. You find the YouTube channel by going to breaktherules.tv, breaktherules.tv, and you could follow me on Twitter at LevPo, LEVPO. So yeah, all that's for the address bar, breaktherules.tv. And yeah, so once again, thank you so much, Glink, and thank you to Slush. I know he had to go, but thank you so much to him for doing this. This is a great pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.